It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now. All right, what do we got first?
So Ford will be splitting its EV business and legacy internal combustion business into two separate entities because they are investing about $50 billion into electric vehicles. Now, right now, this reorganization keeps the businesses as one stock, if I'm correct. Is that correct?
This again, if you've watched this our show for any length of time, you know how often I get onto Danny for reading headlines and not reading the stories.
Correct.
Or going at all into what is actually happening.
I'm throwing stuff against the wall.
When he sent me this story, I immediately replied to him and say, "No, I've read, that's not happening." And now here the story is on this. Look, they are not splitting. Ford is not splitting its company. It is taking its company and creating a second division, which is why you're right. There is no separation of stock, which is why there probably ever won't be, because the reality of this is the reason Ford is not. Look, here's where not. Again, I don't like just outright saying someone's wrong, but here's where Danny's wrong.
That's fine. Just say it.
The market wanted Ford to separate companies. It's EV and another. Because the market and banks that invest and funds and invest in companies like Ford, big blue chip companies, wanted it to create a completely separate entity so that they would have the ability to make more money if they do go public, right?
Correct.
Right now, Ford is saying, Ford, I don't believe, is sold that EVs will ever be profitable.
Correct. Now, here's what I'm saying. I'm saying this, I agree with everything you just said, and I don't believe that this is done lightheartedly. Here's my thought. I think that they are doing this as a step towards eventually saying, well, hey, Ford is like any other company on the planet. If they can bring in money through something, they're going to do it. So they're thinking, well, hey, if the market has an appetite, why let Fisker, right, who's never going to give you a car, who went belly up once, why let all these Chinese EV companies satiate the appetite of the market for EV stocks? There is an appetite for EVs, but there is a quintuple the appetite for the stock that there is the actual car.
The appetite for EV stock is definitely far and beyond the appetite for actual EVs. Go ahead.
No, but so my thought is this is just a separation of management and a separation of development into a different division. Right.
Well, they felt the need to separate because they were having a hard time recruiting talented people in the EV world, right? Because they're Ford. Right? They're gas-powered. They're obviously flat out has said over and over again, we are a gas-powered company, and we will continue to be, but we're also going to dabble into the EV market. So they were having a hard time getting people on board with this. So, hey, let's create a separate division inside our company. We're going to call it the Ford Model E. We're going to call all of our legacy products Ford Blue. Right? So Ford Model E, electric, blue, Ford Model Blue. Ford, as everyone should know, their market is blue. Chevy's is red, right? Yada, yada. Anyway, so let's create this. Here's the problem, though. They were going in this with eyes wide open, knowing that Ford Blue is going to, at least for the foreseeable future, going to carry Ford Model E. Meaning... Model E is not going to make money, and Ford Blue is going to have to compensate. Already, they've told the new CEO of Ford Blue that he needs to successfully cut $3 billion in structural costs from next year.
Right.
To just cover what Ford Model E, budget is
going to eat up. So here's the thing, though, right? If you're Ford, unlike a lot of these other publicly traded EV startups, if you take your Ford Model E business and you take that public, you get all of this capital from the marketplace, institutional investors, Main Street investors, consumers. Everybody's going to buy your dumb stock. You get to capitalize on it. And when the time comes in the next decade where everybody goes, okay, the hybrid revolution is here, it's here to stay. The EV revolution is probably another 15 years away for full electric cars before the infrastructure starts to make sense, before the costs make sense. Because, hey, you have to pull minerals out of the ground in Africa to put batteries in all this stuff.
Yep.
That's not an infrastructure that exists. That's not an infrastructure that's easy to build. And, hey, let's just live with reality. The infrastructure is mainly owned by the Chinese right now. That's all I'm saying is that that's where all the minerals are coming from. They're coming out of the ground in Africa, and the Chinese control that. It is just the situation.
Well, look, you're right in the thought process, but what won out for Ford was they want to ultimately share information between these two companies and technologies, much like the software that's going to be running these companies and stuff like that. So go ahead.
No, sorry. There was one thing I was going to say, which is, unlike all of these other EV companies, in the future, if the stock starts to go down, if something, EVs, like it's not going to happen, Ford Blue can step back in and assume.
Right. They just closed the division, right? And they don't have a failure on their hands, right? With a completely different company that they're shutting. I think that's part of it, is hedging their bets, but they want to be able to develop both of these. If they create another entity, then you got to deal with the SEC, and are companies allowed to transfer information from each other if two different entities and stocks, and how does...
Ford Blue owns part of Model E so that the transfer of information is smooth. But here's why I think they'll do it. Anytime somebody says, hey, I promise I'm not running for office, they're running for office. It's a promise. They're going to fail, but they're running for office. So Ford specifically said, we are not doing this. We're not creating a separate entity. We're not taking this public. They're taking it public. They are 100% taking it public.
I think they only take it public if once the benefits of taking it public outweigh the benefits of having it as in-house, which they can with this new division, Model E, they can try out everything they've ever wanted to do. They can try out, like right now, all Ford electric vehicles are going to be only sold through what they call their opt-in revamped customer experience, which is essentially you have to go online, you have to put a deposit, we build your vehicle and we send it to you, all for the price that you see. There's no haggling at the dealerships.
Right.
The dealerships are going to have no inventory of electric vehicles that you can go and be at a dealership. And oh, by the way, the dealerships despise electric vehicles, right? Because there's no look. Dealerships make their money from two things. One, selling a car, they get some profit there. But maintaining those cars is where dealerships make their money. And if EVs, they take less maintenance. They take, you know what I mean? They fall apart less because there's less individual items in them. So it's projected for them to make a lot less money. So dealerships do not like it.
But here's
because it's affecting their bread and butter.
So I know a large dealership back in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities. They're a mainstream American dealership. They sell trucks and stuff. And they sell several, they always have an inventory of used Teslas. And I said, it's fascinating to me. So I was talking to the guy who, owns a place, and he's like, well, listen, I love Tesla customers. They come in, they have great credit, they finance it. And here's the reality. Most of these Tesla customers are buying a second or third vehicle. This is not their main. They have purchased a 2500 truck or something like that. So they're already my customer, and I love to sell them this stuff. And I was like, hey, I have a question. Why is there so much ample inventory of used Teslas that you can just go buy? He's like, hey, man, people buy them because it's cool. They live with it for 2 years or a year, and they go, I can't live with this. Production quality really isn't as much as people
it's just not there. It's just not there. I don't care if it's Tesla or any other EV that so far has been built.
Any EV startups. Now, I've heard a lot of good things about the Mach-E, which is
electric Mustang, right? Which is a big
Mustang
mistake.
in quotes.
right? And
It's still the
The Ford Lightning, which is the F-150 electric, is supposed to be. But again, that's a car manufacturer, right? They're
right. So
sticking
they
an electric engine in
right,
what they know how to make.
correct. So that's going to be different in my view, and we'll have to see how that all turns out for
That's why I
Ford.
don't understand, and you and I have said it on the show, how any of these quote unquote startups in electric vehicles make it ever. Their best option is to get bought out by General
But
Motors,
yes,
Ford, whoever,
right.
right?
And here's the question, right? Who is starting the company and why are they starting it? Elon Musk didn't start Tesla. He just was the largest investor, accidentally
Mm-hmm.
became the CEO. I don't think he likes the job, but he keeps doing it. All of these other companies, like for instance, I was just reading about Fisker. This guy Heinrich
Mm-hmm.
Fisker, who's a car designer. Now, as a car lover, you go, man, it'd be awesome if a car designer ran the company. Now, a car designer is running the company, and you go, this is stupid. You need an engineer to be practical.
Right.
So, uh, so what's going to happen here, I believe anyway, is all of these companies, like what happened to the first Fisker vehicle, which is the Fisker Karma, got sold to I think a sovereign wealth fund in Saudi in the Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
and they tried to reproduce it. It's not going to work. So I just here's what I think. These people who are the CEOs and the top brass of these companies realize the appetite is here. We can take the public's money, we can invest in these businesses, we can develop it 75% of a road going vehicle that's going to pass all the NHSTA whatever stuff. We can get it 75 3/4 of the way there, and then we're all going to take golden parachutes down when Ford shows
Right.
up, when GM shows up, when Stellantis shows up, when Renault and all these other Toyota and all these other people go, huh,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take me. It's not that they care about the money. They're going, it's going to take me 5 to 10 years to replicate their development, or I can just buy them today.
Well, there.
Volkswagen,
Look.
Toyota, all these companies are huge. They're just going to cash out, and all of the guys who started these companies, they're going to go take billions of dollars in paydays and start
Mm-hmm.
venture capital funds, and then we're going to have to listen to them on stages at Startup Grind or whatever, pontificate at South by Southwest about the future of cryptocurrency or something. It's going to be stupid.
Well, but each one of them is taking their own risk, and here's why I say that. Not everybody's going to get bought out. The difference between a company that gets bought out by Toyota, Ford, whatever, and a
Right.
company that just gets bashed in the head and dies will
Right.
be if you have something they want. And guess
Right.
what? It's not your ability to make a car because none of them are
Right.
going to make any cars, or at least
Right.
a bunch of them, right? So you have to have, if you have a unique technology that, you know what I mean, or if you
Right.
develop or contract with a battery company that they
Right.
covet, whatever. But if you don't have something quote unquote unique,
Right.
you're just going to get bashed in the head and die. So your
And,
golden parachute is gone,
right.
right? But
Because
they're willing to take that risk because they might. That some random engineer that they hire out of college may come up with that new widget on an electric motor that makes it go
correct.
whatever, right?
Right.
And that's what they'll covet. Those are the ones that'll
Right.
get bought out because Ford has no problem writing a huge check because they want
Correct.
this one technology.
Correct. So they're gonna. And that's the game, though. That is big business as a whole. Like I think in America, we think of entrepreneurship and we think of starting a business, mom and pop, all this other jazz. But big business is about, as Kiyosaki puts it, OPM, other people's money, OPT, other
Mm-hmm.
people's time. How do I take other people's money? How do we take other people's time? Put all of that under one roof, monetize the crap out of it, and put money in my pocket. Now, there's a part of me that's a little like grossed out by that, but there's the other part of me that goes, "Hey, baby, that's the game."
That
This
is the game.
yeah. But anyways, we're gonna move into this next story. But before we do that, we want to remind you about our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com. You can see the full episodes there. And check it out. And you can go to patreon.com/market explainer. You can go to marketexplainer.com, learn more about what we're doing here, the show.
Yes.
So